So ASD is typically characterized by significant differences in how a person socializes, communicates, and behaves. Every person with ASD is different in their abilities with no specific set of signs and symptoms. Those with ASD can be either high functioning, which require less support, have better social and communication skills, and less unusual repetitive behaviors. Others can be low functioning with severe autism, which require a lot more support. They tend to struggle with social skills and communication and can encounter a lot of unusual or repetitive behaviors that might impair their daily life. There's no known cause to ASD, but research has shown a genetic link. ASD can be hard to diagnose in individuals because there's no specific test for it, but can be observed over time to successfully diagnose it. There's an increased risk of a child being born with ASD if the child has other siblings with ASD or if the child is born to older individuals. The 4 major categories associated with ASD include social skills, communication, unusual interests or behaviors, and developmental delays. For social skills, some children on the spectrum have a variety of friends and some may not be interested in others at all. Others may want to make friends but don't necessarily understand how to do it. With communication, some children with ASD are nonverbal, while others are able to seamlessly carry on a conversation. Some also have very unique ways of communicating, such as the use of sign language. Unusual interests or behaviors can include obsessive interests in specific topics, such as the history of trains and all of their models. Other examples would be hand flapping when excited or overstimulated, and sensitivities to sound and pain. Those with severe ASD have a very high pain tolerance and may also be very sensitive to sounds. Developmental delays can be seen in some individuals with ASD through cognitive delays, while others are extremely gifted. Other delays that may be seen include delays in their use of gross motor skills, such as walking, and fine motor skills, such as grasping a pencil. Research shows that the best treatment for ASD would be early intervention services because they can help promote the child's development. Behavioral therapies would be ongoing treatment that can help teach and encourage different social and communication skills. Dietary and medical regimens can also be used, but it wouldn't be treatment exactly, but more of a way to manage certain symptoms such as the inability to focus.
Sesame Street has been part of so many childhoods, providing a positive way for kids to learn and grow.
Well, now a new Muppet is joining the group, and she's going to join us live in a moment. But first, Jenna has her story.
Yeah, good morning, guys. Diversity and inclusion have always been a staple on Sesame Street. Now they're tackling the autism spectrum disorder with a fun-loving character named Julia, and we recently got to spend some time together. On one of the most storied streets around, there's a brand new face in town.
Who's this?
Oh, this is our friend, Julia.
Oh, hi, Julia. I'm Big Bird. Nice to meet you.
Julia is a preschooler who has autism.
What's autism?
Well, for Julia, it means that she might not answer you right away.
Yeah, she does things just a little differently, in a Julia sort of way.
Julia is part of Sesame's See Amazing and All Children initiative.
Play with Abby and Elmo. Play Spy.
First introduced digitally in 2015, she's now coming to life as a Muppet on the show for the first time.
What's she like? What does she like to do?
So Julia's a very special little girl. She's 4 years old.
Boing, boing, boing.
And she is not as verbal. She uses a communication device. She just enjoys being part of the Sesame Friends.
She's a component of Sesame Workshop's free resource tools designed to build better understanding about autism spectrum disorder, which affects 1 in 68 American children.
So tell me some of your favorite things to do together.
We like to jump a lot. We jump a lot. Jumping. Jump. Autism is pretty magical because Julia sees the world so differently that when we play together, sometimes she finds different adventures for us. Julia, you're so creative.
I want Julia to be a beautiful, likable, wonderful kid because that's what our kids are.
Stacy Gordon is the puppeteer for Julia.
Stacy, you have a personal connection to autism. Will you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, my son is on the autism spectrum, but before I had him, I was a habilitator for kids with autism.
Noise? The sirens are bothering you?
My son hasn't had somebody on television that's represented him, especially in an extremely positive light, like they're doing with Julia. So for me, Julia is that representation that is important to our family.
Look who's feeling better.
Julia!
Sesame Street has always been about diversity.
Yes, we want to represent what our nation and global world really represents.
We can all be friends.
A new friend for Grover, Elmo, and Abby Kadabi, who's adding to Sesame Street's fun, diverse, and loving community.
When you think about the overall goal, what do you hope Julia does?
I hope that Julia brings positivity and love and acceptance around autism.
It feels a little better when we all play together. We can all be friends.
And guys, look who we have here. We have Julia, along with her friend Abby, and Sherry Weston. Morning, guys.
Hi, guys.
It's good to have you all.
Julia,
So happy to be here.
Julia, how are you doing?
Good morning. Yeah. She likes being here, Mr. Matt.
Yes.
Julia.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very exciting.
Yes, my friend Julia, she has autism, so it takes her a while to take in the environment just a little bit differently.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What do
Hi,
you guys
Julia.
like to do together, Abby?
Oh, we like to play, right? Play. We made up a game called Boing Tag.
Boing tag?
Boing Tag. Boing.
Now have that game too.
Sherry, why was it important for Sesame Workshop to do this with Julia, to create this?
Well, you know, as Jenna pointed out, today 1 in 68 children are diagnosed with autism. So we knew this was an issue we had to address. And when we created the initiatives, The Amazing in All Children, we created Julia. She was a digital character at the time, online and storybooks. And quite frankly, the response from the autism community was so enormous that we knew we needed to bring her to life on Sesame Street.
We love having her
Thank
here.
you so
Thank
much,
you
ladies.
so much.
Great to have you.
Nice to meet you, Julia.
And we're back after this.
The prevalence of autism spectrum disorder claims little to no direction. This means that there is not enough research to illustrate a true representation of what autism looks like in terms of prevalence. We do know that prevalence rates of children being diagnosed with autism disorder have been influenced by the improvised diagnostic measures. Some sources of surveillance that can help shape prevalence estimates include the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, Autism and Developmental Services, Developmental Monitoring Network, and the California Department of Developmental Services. From the years of 1988 to 2002, there was a rise in rates of autism spectrum disorder from diagnoses from true autism from 75% to 80%. This means that the reason for the increase was not brought on from the new diagnostic measures and increased awareness efforts, but from the actual evaluation from a clinician. In 2010, the prevalence was 13.4 per 1,000 children in the age category of 4 years of age and increased to 15.3 per 1,000 children in 2012. This followed another peak increase in 2014 of 17.9 per 1,000 children. In 2018, according to the CDC, the national estimate reported a 15% increase in prevalence and that 1 in 59 children would be diagnosed. There is also a narrowing in the gender gaps as boys were 4.5 more times to be diagnosed with autism in 2012 and it lowered to 4 in 2014. What we know from these rates is that autism has continued to rise over the years and is lacking recent attention from researchers. There is little to no recent prevalence statistics, and we can only rely on estimates, and could be potentially attributed to the change in diagnostics as it is classified as a spectrum disorder and can be difficult to evaluate.
So what is the Early Start Denver model? The Early Start Denver model is an evidence-based intervention proved to be effective. It is also based on the methods of applied behavioral analysis. So this intervention focuses on developing play skills, the social skills, language, and relationships for the child. The goal is for those children with autism to develop their social communication skills in order for them to build and develop relationships with others. So therapists use activities the children enjoy and use it as the basis for teaching. But most importantly, this intervention is based on building and developing strong relationships with the child and caregiver, and this can be done in any setting, such as the therapist's office, the child's home, and even the preschool. One part of the intervention is called imitation, and how this works is you have two sets of toys, one for yourself and one for the child. You try to get the child to watch you, that way they can imitate you. And you try to do this with excitement in order to grab their attention and for them to be interested. One important thing to keep in mind is to not give set of instructions such as do this. No, let them imitate you because this will help the young child start building those relationships and conversation. This is also proven to improve their brain activity because it helps with the development of neural pathways. So one suggestion for improvement is giving good positive reinforcement when the child imitates you. Having a reward or feedback from the environment is very crucial. So by having this, it will make the child keep wanting to continue to engage, which will then improve on their social and communication skills, but to also strengthen a bond between you and the child.
For a promising new treatment called the Early Start Denver model.
The Early Start Denver model is a method of intervention developed for very young children. And it draws from a number of different sources, both theories and science.
Dr. Sally Rogers co-authored the Early Start Denver model, or ESDM, which she has been working on since the early 1980s. It's a program that has gained worldwide recognition, including a ranking on Time magazine's top 10 medical breakthroughs in 2012 for its promising results in children as young as 12 months.
Something about these really, really little ones. I think they're still in a developmental period where their peers are learning to talk. They're not out of sync yet with other 18 to 24-month-olds. Everybody in that age is learning to talk.
And we'll go, open boats.
At 18 months old, Matthew was noticeably behind his twin sister and his peers in verbal and social development.
Cupcakes?
But researchers believe they could help him catch up fairly quickly.
Caterpillar. When he first came to us, he had no language. He made very little eye contact. He had very few play skills. This would be a great way to work on jumping with 2 feet.
He's very good at jumping.
Do you want more juice? Yeah. Yes.
Amy Board is a speech pathologist and the team lead for Matthew's intervention, which included a handful of therapists as well as his parents, who also received training so they can continue the treatment at home. It's an intensive 20 hours of therapy each week.
Where was Matthew's focus during the ball routine, do you think?
The therapy combines several science-based practices for working with autism into one intervention program. So rather than analyzing just communication or eye contact, the ESDM model is designed to work on improving several skills at once.
So during the book routine, you saw me elicit eye contact. You saw me do vocal imitation with him. You saw me elicit sound effects with him with the slurping of the soup. Worms are yucky. Yucky. And the idea is that we get to teaching about every 10 seconds. So about every 10 seconds, you're going to see some kind of a learning opportunity. And that's our fidelity goal with the ESDM model.
And the results? After 5 months of therapy, it would be hard for someone who doesn't know Matthew to see a difference between him and any other child his age.
Many skill sets are more commonly linked to our ability to communicate and interact with others in a social context. Hence, without the basis for learning in an integrated, socially focused environment, children may suffer substantially in terms of cognitive development. Researchers commonly suggest that the Early Start Denver model is crucial for children with ASD because it improves the brain activity associated with social development and communication. Based on several randomized clinical trials, The Early Start Denver model was shown to be highly beneficial to children with ASD, as well as positively associated with greater improvements at post-assessments of children. The Early Start Denver model has had a wide range of success in helping children as young as 18 months be able to demonstrate positive results. Children exposed to the Early Start Denver model made statistically significant improvements in their language and cognitive domains regarding the severity of autism symptoms at a younger age. Common results include improved learning and language abilities and adaptive behavior.
Although there are many positive results due to the Early Start Denver model, there are still other concepts that impact this intervention. The cost of the Early Start Denver model is sometimes covered by insurance. Due to the differences in health coverage, many private health insurances cover services for autism depending on the kind of coverage you have and the state you live in. If a child is under the age of 21, Medicaid plans must cover treatments that are medically necessary for the child. Being able to medically prove your child does in fact need medical treatments, a child must have access to regular checkups with a general physician. This may be easy for some, but not others. Difficulty finding coverage for your child may lead to financial stress. This particular intervention requires you to also engage in exercises with your children outside of the therapy that they receive. You will review progress with the intervention staff and discuss your child's program and how it is working inside your household. This is difficult, but depending on each family's particular situation. You may have a single-parent household who must spread themselves thin just to provide their children with the best care and continue to keep their household running. Or even a two-parent household also may struggle to juggle work, children, and everyday activities along with this intervention. The Early Start Denver model has been seen to have a positive effect on children who go through therapy. There is still much more research that needs to be done in order to understand the full effects of the intervention. Early detection is always important for the Early Start Denver model because the earlier you identify the signs, then the sooner you can look into treatments for your child. Raising awareness nationally and globally has increased numerously throughout the years, but not nearly enough to financially support the research that is needed to be done. Researchers believe that the stigma around autism spectrum disorder keeps families from having their child diagnosed or treated. This leads to the inability to utilize the effective outcomes of the Early Start Denver model. These stigmas derive from cultural societal beliefs across the world, such as, my child is going through a phase, or my child is just like this and there is nothing that I can do. The wide spectrum of autism also creates a late diagnosis. Because the autism spectrum disorder is different in all types of people, some people may be diagnosed later in life, causing them to miss out on early interventions such as the successful Early Start Denver model.